I'm just trying to make as many of these because I really realize it is me who come back to these and find like utility here because like sometimes when I'm writing, like I'm journaling my thoughts out, I just don't get everything out. But like when I'm just saying it and I'm just spewing, I actually get a lot more out that sometimes I won't remember in writing because like when I'm writing things out, I try to like write incomplete thoughts. So it's kind of like, yeah, like I feel this way and this is how this contributes to this and this is how this contributes to this. And then I realize now that I'm doing more actual storytelling with like visuals and, media. So not just images, but like video, that for it to make sense to other people, there is quite a lot of stuff that I actually have to contextualize, and I wasn't doing that before. And so that's why it was very simple for me to be like, this is how all of this makes sense. And then other people were like, what? I don't get it. This is not, the math ain't mathin', right? Yeah, so I understand that now, and I just didn't before. Okay. The new pollo asada from Chipotle is very good. Okay. So I want to talk for a second about, this might have been 2020. So it's 2020. And I think this was like Floyd, Black Lives Matter, all the hype, right? We can talk about the organization and the politics around the organization. I think a lot of what Candace Owens has said about the way that it's run and maybe where the money is going, sure, okay, like that stuff is probably true. Like the facts and evidence that she's pointed out has made it seem like it's valid. So maybe the organization is not effective, but the claims and the sentiment are very real and they're accurate, and the racism is real. So when like it was, what happened to Breonna Taylor, basically there's it's like every situation there's always politics around the situation. That okay, that's fair, that makes sense. Maybe some people know how to interact with cops, other people don't. Maybe some people feel intimidated by police, whatever the situation is, okay. But she probably shouldn't have died. She probably shouldn't be dead. I think we could probably agree on that. But she is. And so the fact that it's like yet another Black person who's dead at the hands of police, and these are people who are non-Black, is very hurtful to the Black community because the Black community is in a fragile place. The Black community is in a fragile place because so much has happened to this community here in America that has made it so that it is not a safe space for Black people. Now, a lot of Black people do not feel comfortable saying this because it has not been acceptable to be an adult out in society saying to the mainstream society, especially employers, like, you make me uncomfortable with your whiteness. Like the historic track record of discrimination and economic depravity and terror that has been poured onto Black bodies and pictured in media and films has made it so that I have fear toward white people and really other races of people. And I feel fearful because of that. Like, that is a real experience that not a lot of Black people are able to communicate. They don't have the ability to say that in words to another person. As simple as I might have made that feel and sound, it is very hard to get up and say that to someone else. I remember I think this was in 2021. So in 2021, the Asian hate started, right? And I had a friend at that time who was Asian, and she broke down on Facebook and described some of the racism that her family had experienced that week. And then she even went back to racism that she's experienced throughout her lifetime, and her mother and her grandmother, because I guess someone kicked her, like the week that she makes a post about something that had happened the last week, and the post was extremely emotional because she had just gotten to a space where she was able to talk about the thing that had happened to her grandmother a week ago. So it took her a week to even get to a place where she could talk about it. It really happened to her, and she had a lot to say, a lot. Like the post was like, I don't know, 16 paragraphs, right? And it was really sad. It was really sad. Like as a human, I understood her pain. As a Black person, I empathized with her pain. As a non-Asian person and a Black person who's experienced racism from Asian people, unfortunately, I didn't see her pain as worse than my own. And I'm not saying I did not care, but I was definitely edging on like I did not care. This is the same sort of sentiment which actually I see a lot. So here's what I see. I see people being like, here's a line, right? On this side of the line are the good people, and on this side of the line are the bad people. Some people are like leftists, rights, liberals, conservatives, California, Texas, like whatever, yeah, wherever the line is, and wherever, if it's a place, or they'll be like atheists, Protestant Christians, non-religious people, religious people, white people, Black people, like whatever the line is. Some people are on this side of the line, and then some people are on that side of the line, and only good things happen to people on this side of the line, which is okay with these people. And then only good things happen to people on this side of the line for these people. When bad things happen to these people believe it's because of their otherness. See, so when the leftists lose, like if the Black woman who's appointed to be like a Supreme Court judge, if she doesn't get it, then the leftists will be like, it's because she's Black. Oh, racism. All of these reasons, right? There are probably many reasons, if she doesn't get it, why she didn't get it. But all of them are not just because she's on the left. Some of them may be, though. Probably not all of them. It's the same thing on the right. Like when, I'm not sure if they actually passed all of those laws that have to do with like abortion and banning abortion, but the big idea is like, well, no, we want to outlaw abortion because we need people having babies. Like we need more Americans born here. We don't want abortions. Those are bad. But the reality is that if those abortion laws happen and are passed, there are many women who are going to have children that they can't take care of. And all of those children aren't going to be the children who are like the wanted children. So we can say those blonde-haired, blue-eyed children. They might be something else. Like they might be like Latino children, Black children. There's something else, right? Those children might be the ones who someone has and doesn't want, is not ready to take care of. That could be the reality too. Like the law is going to apply to everyone, not just the people who it's like you want it to apply to. Like that's the way that laws in society work. So to bring this back to Breonna Taylor, civil unrest, and the Black Lives Matter sentiment. I'm not going to say the movement, the sentiment, right? Just kind of the claim that Black lives do matter, because they don't actually matter to some people, and they do matter to others. Okay. So my point here is that I don't think that people understand what it means to have a quality of life. Like living in a time of like Jim Crow segregation does not promote a healthy lifestyle for Black people at that time. For white people, it was a wonderful time of superiority and mediocrity and middle class suburban winning, right? It was great. It was a wonderful time. That time is gone. And there's something new here now. And there are people, specifically Black people and other people of color, who remember what it was like to live in this country during that time. And they remember that there has been no apology and no reciprocity and no justice for the injustice that people have had to endure during that time. That is unacceptable. And that is where we are today. Because I know for a fact that there are many people who in corporate America are having support groups and flyers about a third world war and empathy and sympathy that they would like for all of us globally to have for Ukraine and another European civilization. And they, some of them, I think, probably can't understand how everyone doesn't have that sentiment. Those same people were here during the Black Lives Matter civil unrest movement. They did not feel empathy, and they did not feel sympathy. And they adamantly opposed bringing political issues into the workspace and place because they felt as though those issues need to be taken care of at home, on your own terms, on your own time, not in a workplace. Okay? Okay. Well, why is it now that we're all supposed to care about a third world war? Why? Are we supposed to pretend like all lives matter? They didn't in 2020. They didn't in 2021. What changed? What changed? And, maybe I'm going to save this one for... I'm going to go outside in a minute. I'm letting my little portable charger charge. But, I think I'm going to go on a rant about Black academics for a second when I go outside. I'm going to talk about Black academics, but right now, I want to talk about supply and demand in terms of relationships, specifically for women and women of color. Really women of color, but I just want to put this into perspective for some of you. Because I don't think some of you understand, and that's okay. Why would you? People who are coming from the developing world and Britain, especially people of color, I think many don't understand assortative mating. And that and how that is real here. and what that means in terms of choices and chances. But in the Black community specifically, there are a lot of Black males who are incarcerated. And these are males who probably could have, over time, gotten their lives together and been productive members in society. But they are not, because they are in prison. Now, because these men are in prison, they are not being fathers in homes. They are not being teachers in schools. They are not being mentors to youth because they are in prison. That's what they're doing. So they're not developing skills. They're not accumulating wealth. They're sitting in prison. That's what's happening. And what that means for the Black community in general is that first of all, in America, there's only about 14%. The population of Black people is only like 14%, and it's not actually growing. I think it's like declining. I don't know if that's necessarily a bad thing, because it doesn't really feel like Black Americans are doing a very good job of competing in terms of American capitalism anyhow. So it like that. I don't know if that's like a negative thing. I don't really know if Black people who have an ambition to be in America are the ones who are here now. It really just feels like the Black people who want to live, I think most Black people who are living in America simply want to have a quality of life and don't realize that if they just got a passport, they could do that in another country pretty simply. And I think there are a lot of Black people, specifically like a lot of Black men, that figure this out. So I do hope more Black women also figure it out and just live a higher quality of life elsewhere. But in terms of America, because like there will always be Black people in America, don't get me wrong. I just think that there will be Africans who migrate to America and then thrive under American capitalism. But I think Black Americans have just endured too much trauma here and are unable to compete under American capitalism currently as it stands. And that's okay. Like, it's okay to gracefully bow out and just take a simpler path living elsewhere. That's not a negative thing. It's okay. Really. And I think that where was I going with this? So I was getting to the point where Black American males, or Black males in America, many of them are locked up. This is also present in the UK. So I think there's a lot of like gang violence culture and like kind of thug culture is like very popular. And so, the men and the boys in that society are participating in those sort of behaviors, and then it's leading to prison. And that's the thing, because that really happens, right? And that's okay. Well, I mean, it's not okay. It's not good for the women, because the women then don't have mates, or there's this like weird prison culture, which is actually a real thing, where people have boyfriends who are in jail, and then of the men who are out here, there are just very few who are of quality. So there's like a lot of women who are not incarcerated who are like pooling, like trying to sample from a very small population of quality men that they could mate with. So we can't even really talk about assortative mating really in the Black community. I mean, to an extent, some maybe, but I think, to be honest, not really. It's a very skewed situation because, like, in the white community, you can honestly talk about assortative mating because, like, the strongest and most wealthy men have attracted the, most beautiful women, and then they can then have children with those women, and now they can continue on into the next generation. But in the Black community, a lot of the beautiful women, for whatever reason, the men are choosing to, like, not appreciate those women, like, and I guess there's just such a small pool of acceptable men to choose from that, the men have all the choices and the women are choosing from a smaller and smaller pool of black men. There's a lot of men, so that's not a thing. There's just, like, not a lot of black men. Okay, so and so the numbers basically just aren't adding up. And so I think that's why in the Black community specifically, we have to have, like, a different set of standards and a different cultural norms to have conversations about what it means to be an adult, because it actually might not mean, just simply having a boyfriend and having, like, a normal dining experience where you're dating. And it's not because it's something that is wrong with you. It is simply because there just aren't that many males, and of the males that are in this community, if you are, like, a black person and you want to date a black person, the ones that are acceptable, there's very few of them. They have a lot of choices, not just black women, like all women. But I would also say the same is true for black women who could, if so black women who are also kind of at the top of the food chain in a sense, also have quite a lot of options of, who they can date and where they can go and, what they can do. So the people who are at the top of the food chain have a lot of options. But there's a lot of people who are not at the top of the food chain, and they are also members of the black community. And for most people who are non-black, the interactions that they have day to day are with black people who are not at the top of the food chain. And so their black experience is one of lower tier black people. There's something else that is happening that is new, where an elite group of black people is forming and cementing itself in society and in the world. And other groups are having to acknowledge that and process it for the first time ever globally. And that's very scary. That is very scary. Because this sort of genetic inferiority that they felt was prevalent among all black people. Some people are understanding that it is attributed to social factors and neglect and racism, and not innate ability. And that is difficult to sit with. Yeah. Yeah. Hmm. And not everyone has to. It is not a requirement for everyone to sit with and unpack issues and their personal issues by and with the Black community. Like, they are able to simply exist without having or showing respect for Black people. Like, it isn't their responsibility to coddle, nurture, or care for or about Black people or the Black experience in America or otherwise. For me personally, though, as a Black person who's grown up in a very upper middle class lifestyle and experience, and I realized that I've had just quite a lot of privilege and access and more than other women who look like me have had. I think that it is my responsibility to speak up and to speak out and to be clear about my perspective and why it is that I have had certain opportunities presented to me, and also why I have experienced certain hardships that I am now and in the past have had to work through. And I continue to go back to Kanye West and Kim Kardashian because for me, in my lifetime, they're the only example of culture that is not centered around white people. Kim Kardashian is not white. Kanye West is a Black American. Their children are of color. They are now dealing with a culture war in a family law case around culture, custody, relationships after marriage, divorce, publicity scandals, oversharing of private information. Okay. These are all issues that we have not seen tackled with civility or much care outside of white communities. And as a society, we need to see this and we need to see it go well, because the future of the country is very similar to the experience that we're watching now. It's not the same, but it's similar. And I think that we have a responsibility to treat both parties with respect. Because our children live in this society currently, and their children live in this society currently. And if you want to live in a society where your children thrive, you'd want to make sure that other people's children have the ability to thrive too. Because if you take away that ability, what is lurking around the corner is your ability to raise your own children. And I know that from firsthand experience. I'm saying this because, and when I go outside, I will talk more about Black academics and how this affects them. There are many people, including Black people, who do not see the struggle and plight of impoverished Black people as problems that they need to deal with, because they see themselves as other and they do not feel a responsibility to deal with other people's problems. When it becomes clear that that is how you feel, other people begin to feel that they should have no empathy for your problems. And a part of the human experience is that you will encounter problems. Everyone. The good and bad people will encounter problems because that is a part of the human experience. And no one is immune from that. No one. And we have to normalize that. We have to normalize that. Yeah. I have worked very hard for the last year in an attempt to create some semblance of a normal adult female experience for myself. I feel like that attempt has failed miserably because of all of the social factors impacting the Black community specifically, and the stereotypes propagated onto the Black community by other people. And it is a problem, and I am here to be a part of the solution. But my solution does not look like a palatable solution that you are familiar with, that you have seen before, and that will be comfortable for you. I guarantee that. It is a solution that will probably be uncomfortable for a lot of people, because I am uncomfortable with disrespect. I just am. And that will not change. It won't change today or tomorrow or in my lifetime. And it is not your responsibility to try to change that for me. It is not your responsibility to try to feel empathy for me or to try to help me, because you do have your own life to live. I just hope that you realize that your systems, in the way that you understand them now, and the comforts that you have, that you believe that you have now, can and will be disrupted, as some of you are seeing, because of globalization. And there are some people who are heavily invested into globalization, like me. For me, this is why I have no interest in the survival of America. It doesn't make a difference. It doesn't matter at all. The survival of European nations, to me, does not matter. The survival of the human race does matter. The survival of African people does matter. Yeah. Like, those are fundamental beliefs that I have, that I've held my entire life, And I have tried to remain very civil in terms of keeping my politics to myself and trying to remain, I don't think I did anyone any favors by doing this, remain quiet in times where I could have easily spoken up to start to spark curiosity in terms of adverse opinions, but those aren't popular. No one wants to hear that you're not like interested in the survival of their race or culture because you think it's inferior. But I mean,